Hey everyone, Jason here from Off the Beaten Path, and picking up where we left off, we're coming back past Devil's Hollow Campground where Luca and I camped, and we're continuing just another couple of kilometres down to the Dargo High Plains Road, through the gate there, past Lanky Plain Hut, and then heading north for about 5k's on the Dargo High Plains Road to the start of the Blue Rag Range track, and then heading up the Blue Rag Range track to the Blue Rag Trig Point, which is well less than about halfway along. It's maybe 6 kilometres along what is probably a 16 kilometre track. So yeah, it's maybe halfway along, but it's the most common point that people go to. First time with the Grenadier on Blue Rag, so let's get into it, guys. So yeah, just heading out the western end of the Kingspur track, coming from Devil's Hollow down towards the Dargo High Plains Road. Pretty quick, easy run. And then once we hit the High Plains Road, around about, I think, probably 4 to 5k's north until we hit the start of the Blue Rag Range track. So it's been a little while since I last did Blue Rag. Last time was in the Patch, one of those tracks that I just never got the opportunity to take the 76 up, unfortunately. So yeah, it's definitely been a couple of years, and I was keen to try it out, see how the traction control and the diff locks made a difference, because there's certainly a few more Wombat Holes. Now, just for reference, for those watching at home, we are this trip was taken and recorded in the beginning of February of 2025. So yeah, Wombat Holes right at the start now. It's almost like Blue Rag's got a little bit of a gatekeeper, an obstacle at the start of the track there that. If you're having trouble with that and can't get past it, well, it stops you getting into trouble further along the track. You can see those Wombat Holes there are decently dug out. And that was traction control only, and you can see there how it took a little second to sort of kick in, where I lost traction, and then the traction control has pushed the drive to the wheel and it's actually got traction. So then you got this little rocky climb here. Again, not super difficult. Nice little start to the track though, lets you know you're driving it, that's for sure. And a little bit of traffic coming the other way with the Jeep Gladiator there, and I think the second one might be a Hilux maybe? Probably getting that wrong. Just a quick chat to let the guys know that there is only 2 of us. Continuing up this first section, the track is definitely chewed out a little bit more, and it's a bit of a theme with Blue Rag at the moment, where you've got one part of the track that's quite rocky, and then the other part that is a little smoother, so you can definitely choose your own adventure. So the access there into the actual Mount Blue Rag, cracking little campsite down in there, and we will check that out on the way back. So cresting that first main hill, and you start to get a picture of what's ahead of you, and also your first glimpse of some cracking views of the Victorian high country. Just making our way comfortably down this little rocky hill here. Once you get past that those initial Wombat Holes, you've got a reasonably long section that's really not too difficult at all. Without doubt, the main obstacle in the front half is those couple of Wombat Holes right near the very beginning of the track. The rest of this is pretty dry, pretty easy still. it's a little bit rough in places if you choose to drive on the rocks, but it's definitely still not what you would call difficult. Now again here, you can see there's a bit of a bypass track that's been put in around the left-hand side. I was driving on the rocks on purpose because I'm getting used to driving the car. I want to see how it behaves on different surfaces, and I've driven plenty on smooth dirt roads. So yeah, easier line around to the left for sure, but yeah, I was happy taking the line I was taking. Still getting used to the car and how it behaves. And yeah, you can see this descent here is fairly chewed up, so going down this is not difficult, but you've got some wombat holes to contend with coming back up, and you can see up ahead there what I call the big hill. So that is what I sort of think of when I think of Blue Rag as the main big climb. It's actually probably around about only halfway. When you get to the top of that climb, you're about halfway to the Trig Point, but that is the longest climb on the whole track. You can see the wombat holes here that have formed up. Again, not an issue going down, but just something to be aware of coming back. And again, you've got a much smoother run on the left-hand side here and a rocky section on the right-hand side. In this particular case, I've elected to stay on the left and enjoy the smoother ride. This big hill that's coming up is probably the section of Blue Rag that people get into trouble the most on. When you hear of vehicles having accidents on Blue Rag, I believe most commonly it's this section, and particularly at the moment with some wombat holes partway along this. So the risk is you get stuck in the wombat holes, you lose traction, you roll back, and as you roll back, you put the vehicle somewhere where you really don't want to be putting it, and it is a fairly steep drop off. So yeah, you can see there on screen, starting the big climb as I call it. So this section of track rises 160 metres vertically, approximately, over about a 700 metre distance. So you can see there a little bit of a wheel lift going through those wombat holes. The suspension on the Grenadier does flex pretty well. Certainly coming from the 76 you notice it, but still you still get a bit of a wheel lift going into those wombat holes. And you can see a lot of this climb is actually pretty straightforward. A little bit rocky and all the rest of it, but the traction's good, and it's really not too difficult. It's when you come to these sections like this one we're coming up to now, you can see it's been dug out and some decent wombat holes forming there. This is where, if you don't have traction control or you don't have lockers, you really want to choose your line. You can see there I went to the right, put one wheel on the outside, one wheel in the centre, and doubtless didn't lift a wheel going that way. It does put your car a lot closer to the edge, and not everybody's going to be comfortable taking a line like that. There is a bit of a limit on how far the other way you can go. Wombat holes here just not quite as bad as those earlier ones, and the Grenadier's just driven through them quite nicely. As you can see though, there is a decent drop off to the right hand side there, so not a huge margin for error on this section of Blue Rag. It is one of those climbs, this one, every time you think you're getting to the top, you sort of come around the corner and realise you're not there yet. So again, some good wombat holes here, and the Grenadier's flexed nicely through those and had no trouble at all. look, apart from those few sections where you've got a hump to get over and some wombat holes and the odd tree like this that's been cut off at, you know, just enough space, it's not a difficult climb, this one. But those are the parts where people do get into trouble, and it depends on your line choice and your vehicle as to how easy or difficult they might be. Now I think getting to the top here, I've just pulled up because I want to put the lockers in, or at least one of the lockers, just to see how the car handles that differently. Now I actually know now that you don't need to stop to put the lockers in, but you know, I hadn't had the car all that long at this time, and I was doing everything very carefully, not wanting to break something on my new car if I could avoid it. So yeah, much larger wombat holes. You can hear the car revving a bit because I've got it in manual mode as well. Something I tend to do a lot less now that I've had the car a bit longer. The auto is really good and it makes good decisions and it chooses correct gears most of the time. So I think coming from a manual in the 76, I've gotten used to being in control of the gear selection, and it was something that I wanted to be doing. So in these early videos with the Grenadier, you probably hear the engine revving more than it needs to, and that's just, you know, years of error if you like. That's just me driving the car in a way that I don't really need to, and I think that's a function of having come out of the manual. So as you can see, that was the last section of Wombat Holes right there. Coming to the top now where the seasonal closure gate is, and this is also where Basalt North track connects up. Stay tuned down the track, guys, because we'll be on Basalt North in the snow season. And yeah, another seasonal closure gate just here as well. So pushing on, as I said, once you get to this section here, you're about halfway from the start through to the Trig Point, and the rest of the drive from here is really pretty easy. There's a couple of little rocky climbs, they're very short though, and there are some wombat holes starting to form, at least there were in February, so they might be a little larger by the time you're watching this, but it certainly wasn't anything that I would consider difficult. The main obstacle is really the gatekeeper wombat holes at the start, and then the wombat holes coming up that big climb. See here, we've got a nice little climb, a little bit rocky, no real wombat holes at this time when I'm there, but something that will probably develop over time unless they grade the track again. But yeah, very, very drivable. And of course, as you work your way through Blue Rag, off to the sides you've got those fantastic views that the track is really known for. Just making this last little climb here. I shouldn't say last because we've still got a ways to go. I should say next little climb here. And I just pulled off there to actually change the GoPro battery, and it's quite a nice view of the track ahead. You can see the Ridgeline Blue Rag Range track there crisscrossing the hilltops up to the Trig Point there in the distance. So this is just a little side parking area off the main track. Cracking little spot. Wouldn't be a bad little camp spot in a pinch if you found yourself up here, to be quite honest. So yeah, just pulling back down onto the main track there. There was a little bit of traffic on the track today, so That was the reason I pulled off to change the GoPro batteries. I don't always, but yeah, just in case somebody needed to get past while I was doing that. I don't like to hold people up. And this is the section that really comes into the ridgeline run that Blue Rag's known for. Some footage here from Luca. Vista forward. A little hill there in the foreground that you climb before you get to the Trig Point. And cracking views from up on Blue Rag. And just coming up on that small hill before we get to the Trig Point. You can see the Grenadier's throwing up a little bit of dust there. But the track here is still very much in good condition. There's no big wombat holes that are formed or anything like that. It's very, very manageable. So, you know, if you're tackling Blue Rag for the first time, if you can get past the gatekeepers and you can get up that first big hill, from then on you're going to be fine. When you approach that big hill too, it's a really good idea to look ahead and see if anyone's started on their way down and try and get a sense of whether there's anyone on that section of track, because you really want to wait at the bottom for them to finish before pushing on and tackling it. Because as you saw, there's not a lot of room to pass on that section of track, and it is a good 700 metres long. As you're coming down, approaching it though, you can see whether people are on that track or not. Working our way along the ridge line here, you can see the hill does drop off on the side fairly steeply. A wombat hole starting to form there part way up for some reason, and this is a little rocky and a little loose here, but you know, still not difficult. And at this time it hadn't formed into proper wombat holes just yet, and you can see how they may develop there over time. And looking ahead there to the approach up to the Trig Point. Quite a nice drive this last section as you're working your way up to the Trig Point. And there is a steepish little climb right at the end, but again I wouldn't say it's anything too difficult. And at the time here it wasn't developing wombat holes or anything like that, so we're just coming up on that climb now. So again, I think I've paused there at the bottom just to put the rear locker in to have a play with the buttons in the Grenadier and see how it behaves, but not really necessary. You can see from this footage, you know, there's no big wombat holes or rock steps or anything overly difficult. I was purely putting the rear locker in just to see how the vehicle behaved. And it does feel very, very stable and very grounded when you've got the rear locker in, particularly on surfaces like this where the traction's quite good. But it's by all means not necessary to have a rear locker to drive this, that's for sure. And there you go. I was sure that was the climb up to the Trig Point, but we're not quite there yet. And just making our way up there now. So we weren't too far away. Lucky for us too, it's rare, particularly on a weekend, that you'll get up to Blue Rag and be the only ones there at the Trig Point. So nice to enjoy that when you can. And what a cracking day to be up Blue Rag Trig as well. Look at that view. Clear skies, just fantastic.
I don't understand the bucket.
No, look, I don't understand the bucket or the thongs or the hat or any of that shit.
But the bucket, what? It's fucking got coins of money in it, or fucking what?
Yeah, I don't know, and the beer bottle or whatever it is.
Yeah, that's just trash.
So, yeah, all good.
So you're happy so far with your vehicle? Sounds like that, as if you are.
Very happy, mate. It is stupid capable.
Look, that's good. I mean, so everything's working. I was going to ask you what the temperature of the transmission was, but I'm sure that was fine. Climbing up, because it's a warmish day. I mean, if that's in range coming up, you certainly wouldn't need to do anything to it.
No. No, well, I mean, as you said, like, it's got all those thermo fans and it's got all those coolers.
And when we were at Flinders Range, I did ask a couple of times, and that was 40 degrees.
Yeah. And was working hard on some of those tracks.
Yeah, it was working up, but you didn't go overboard. So overboard as far as temperature goes, whenever I asked you, you gave me the figures, and that was all right.
So yeah, after a brief stop at the Trig Point, a chat about the Grenadier and how it's going, and some of the additions to the Trig Point that just, yeah, I don't get, but anyway, each to their own. I guess some people feel they need to be different rather than just putting stickers on them. And we're making our way back down and heading back. Now this is a track that is very different depending on which direction you drive it. Now on the way back, obviously not going to show you the whole track, but just a couple of the obstacles. A little bit of traffic coming the other way here.
Thank you.
Just crawling my way down that lumpy little climb before the climb up to the Trig Point. And you can see the track there working its way back along the ridge into the distance. So yeah, nice little climb up a little rocky section of track here that's you know, was a bit different going down, and yeah, probably hit that a little faster than is ideal. There's a little bit more of a rock step in the middle than I was anticipating, but in much the same way, going the other direction, yeah, it's not what you'd call difficult. And it's just a really nice drive in both directions along Blue Rag. And look, if you haven't been all the way to the end, I do recommend it. There's a campground down the end there. It's not real big. Now we're back here about halfway along. The Basalt North track is on the right hand side there, and that'll take you down to Brewery Creek Road and a few other places. And then the Blue Rag Range track, of course, continues down here on the left, heading back down the big hill. And of course, coming back this way, you head down this side and then up the other side. The other side's not quite as big, and coming down here is, in my opinion, at least easier than going up. The car will just roll over the Wombat Holes whether or not you've got traction, and you can control your speed pretty well with the brake pedal and or engine braking. So yeah, it doesn't need the traction to pull the car up. Gravity will assist it to go down. So you do get a reasonable picture here of just how lumpy some of these Wombat Holes are, though. And you can see that steep drop off there on the left hand side. So just definitely something that if you're planning to come and do Blue Rag, you definitely want to be aware of. Modern vehicles with traction control, you probably have no trouble at all. But if you are driving an older four-wheel drive with open diffs and you don't have lockers, you're definitely going to want to be able to choose your line and keep as many wheels on the ground as you can. So yeah, quick run down that side of the hill and then across this little low spot here and heading back up the other side. Which, much as where we just came down there, the other side did have some Wombat Holes that really weren't a factor on the way down, but definitely more of a factor on the way up. To drive on the left hand side, which is a little bit rockier and a little bit lumpier. You can see those Wombat Holes there, reasonably deep, although I pretty much drove through those without dropping a wheel into them. There's plenty more along this section though. And I was quite pleased with how the suspension, stock suspension in the Grenadier, hasn't had a lift or a change or a tune or anything. But yeah, I've been quite impressed with how the stock suspension flexes and handles different terrain. It does a really good job. Those 33-inch kenders certainly fill the yards. Luca once again doing the hard yards, chasing me up the hill with the camera. And you can see there the suspension flexing nicely, reasonable amount of down travel as well as up travel there, going through those Wombat Holes. Yeah, just trying to attack my cameraman there, spitting a rock at him. So you get a sense there of just how much articulation you might want tackling these Wombat Holes, and yeah, very fine silty dust sitting on top. The Grenadier's just about disappeared there in the dust cloud. But yeah, if you're not watching the tyres, you almost don't realise how much the ground surface is changing. The vehicle sits pretty steady, and the suspension sort of does the job. So yeah, moving on from that climb, just finishing this last little bit here, heading back towards the start of the Blue Rag Range track. And you might recall at the start of this video, on the way up, I did mention that we were going to head in and check out the campsite on the actual Mount Blue Rag, which is near the start of the track, not up where the Trig Point is. And yeah, I missed the turn just there, but Luke had just mentioned on the radio that he wanted to go in and check it out. And I said, yeah, no worries, more than happy to follow suit. So it's a lumpy little track on the way in, but if you've got the HEMA maps, you will see that there is a star on the HEMA map in this location, and those stars indicate campsites. So while a lot of people will, if they need to, just set up a camp right next to the main track, you don't have to go too far if you're down this end, and you can get yourself tucked away from the main track and into a cracking little campsite. As I said, this access track here is definitely a little bit lumpy. Doesn't make the access terribly difficult, just something you want to take slow and steady. Campsites down the back there where Luke has just turned around. This section here I have seen very wet and soft at different times, pretty dry at the moment. And by the look of the way the grass is pushed down on the track here, I think it gets a reasonable amount of traffic in here. Yeah, just down in this back corner is where the campsite actually is. Just there. There's probably other places here that you could choose to set up a camp as well. But yeah, one of those little tucked away campsites, worth keeping in mind if you find yourself in this part of the high country and looking for a campsite, because not everybody probably thinks about this one. So quick run back out that little lumpy little track, back out to the main Blue Rag Range track. And this little offshoot here is literally only 1, maybe 2 k's in from the start, probably a kilometre from the start of the Blue Rag track, so it doesn't take us too long at all once we're back on the main drag to get back to the start here. Just working my way down that little rocky little climb and coming up on the first set of Wombat Holes on the track, the gatekeepers if you like. You can see there just how deep they actually are and how much the vehicle dropped cresting that hill. So they're certainly not insignificant, that's for sure. Just something to keep in mind if Blue Rag is on the list of tracks you want to tackle. And yeah, there's a much smaller set of Wombat Holes on that first hump just there. And if you haven't done Blue Rag, I definitely recommend it. It's well worth checking out, and it's not that difficult. You just need to think about your line choice depending on what kind of vehicle you're driving. A modern four-wheel drive with good traction control, you probably just drive wherever you want to drive, and it's not going to be an issue. Obviously, if you've got lockers, throw a locker in, and you're not going to have a problem there either. So yeah, back on the Dargo High Plains Road and a quick run down that to get back to camp. And yeah, I will sleep anywhere, anytime. Back at camp, got the chair out, and lucky I've got a buddy that looks after me, and he put his awning up to keep the sun off me in the afternoon, so I didn't get sunburned. But yeah, cracking camps site there. So guys, if you watched to the end, thanks very much for watching. I really appreciate that. Those of you that do watch to the end, like this video if you've liked it, leave a comment down below, and I will see you in the next one. After this, it's the next day of this trip, and we're heading home, and we tackle Mount Sarah. First time in the Grenadier, and first time in a long time doing east to west on Mount Sarah as well. So I'll see you in that video. Thanks guys.